bilingual coordinator, secondary coordinator, chair for student life, and campus community engagement of Latino Association Faculty and Staff, and faculty advisor of the Futures Teachers Club of the Education and Academic Literacy Department. Today, I will be the moderator of this event. I want to truly thank everyone for being here today. To all the students in the crowd, especially Futures Teachers Club members, I would like to thank you for your presence and participation in this event. You are the masses that fuel and make our college today. If there weren't any students, we would not have a college. Therefore, I give thanks to you for wanting to gain more knowledge from all the incredible panelists with us today. It is an honor to have the opportunity of having these amazing 7 women in front of me share their knowledge, experiences, and insightful words with you. I hope you enjoy the kind and thoughtful words they are going to express. Without them, this event could not have been possible. I would like to introduce a special guest. I invite Dr. Luis Montenegro, Provost and VP of Academic Affairs, to the stage.
Good morning. On behalf of President Milton Santiago, I welcome our honored guests, students, faculty, and other guests as well for this conference today. I really value events like this because they're a special opportunity for our students to learn what lays down in their future. If they stay on track and they take advantage of these opportunities to know what potentially could be their future. How many are students here enrolling in our education programs? Please raise your hands. Welcome, welcome. I hope that you have a great event experience today. I'd like to thank the Latino Association of Faculty and Staff for planning this conference. I'd like to also thank that Future Teachers Club and their mentor, Dr. Flores Caballero, for doing this as well. Thank the honored guests for their time and commitment to be here, share your experiences. I'd like to note that just make a request to consider the Future Teachers Club, maybe add a couple of potential titles as well. Future Teachers, Supervisors, Assistant Principals, and Principals Club, because those are the opportunities you will have as we embark in this career. I know that I want to give the time to the members of the panel to speak about their experiences in the education field and the rewarding profession of teachers. I'd just like to note that I know that experience intimately, at least as an observer, being married to a teacher that taught in the Board of Ed for 27 years, as a kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fifth grade, fourth grade teacher in those 27 years. The time that we spent going back home from school was the time for her to, I would say, decompress and debrief. And by the time we get home, I think she got all that out of her system. It's a difficult profession, I won't kid you, but it's an extremely rewarding profession. Think of yourself, of teachers that have impacted your lives. Think of what they did for you. Someone that believed in you before you believed in yourself. Someone that saw you as becoming something that you didn't know that you could become. Someone that had the passion and the love to be there when you yourself doubted yourself. Your peers perhaps doubted you. You didn't know whether you could accomplish what you set out to accomplish. That teacher gave you the strength, gave you the courage, gave you the emotional support to get there. teaching is a passion, and it's also a profession. So I think that the passion will carry you through. Knowing and learning more about the profession, which is the opportunity that you have today, will help you navigate the intricacies of the profession, because it's, like I said, a difficult profession. You have to learn the landscape to be able to navigate it. You have to plan ahead. You have to plan daily, create lesson plans. You have to plan weekly. You have to plan in the semester. You have to plan within the year. You have to plan for years. So planning, I think, is going to be a key to your success. Thinking ahead, knowing the landscape, taking advantage of opportunities like this, I think will get you in the right frame of mind to think about how you will become a teacher. So thank you, good luck, and have a great event today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Montenegro. As a close and dear person to me and our community, I request that Dr. Tanya Johnson, Chair of the Education Department and Academic Literacy, take the stage, and I thank you for your collaboration on this event.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Sentiments are the same, you're very dear person to me as well. Thank you everyone for attending this event. As you know, this is a very important event as we teachers in the field. I want to thank the panelists for coming. Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Jimenez, Ms. Menendez, Dr. Rodriguez, Dr. Torres, Dr. Velasquez, and Ms. Young. I want to thank the professors that are in attendance from Lehman College. I want to thank the faculty members for coming. I want to especially thank Dr. Rapallo, former Vice President of BCC, now current President of Rockland Community College, Dr. Pichardo, Ms. Isabel. Sorry for chopping up your name. Dr. Chung from Rockland Community College. I want to thank you guys for taking this time out to come today. But I really want to give a special thanks to Ms. Jimenez, who has been a very important person in my life for a very long time. When I was a principal, Ms. Jimenez was my coach, and she was my mentor, and she has built the bridges of bringing us together as one. I have had the opportunity to work with Dr. Leisha Porter, who is the former Chancellor of New York City Department of Education, the first Black woman to hold that position. I'm happy to speak highly of that. In these roles and in these positions, so I just really want to commend her for stepping up into that role and taking on that challenge, because as we stand in these positions, they are very difficult for us. But we are standing the test of time, and I want every future educator out there to not give up and to remember that just as Ms. Mendez was so important in my life, that's our goal here as the chairperson of the department, the professor of the department, Dr. Flores. We want to be here for you as well. I want some of my students to come back and say, you were my mentor. And to say that I do have a student that's in the audience that has come through Bronx Community College, graduated from City College, and came back to teach as an adjunct. That's what we want. We want you guys to be able to get the experiences from the people that's gone through what you're going through, because we all understand. So I just want to give thanks to each and every one of you this morning, and thank you, Dr. Montenegro. But thank you, and I hope you all enjoyed this event. And if I left anybody out, I apologize. It was not intentional, but I don't have a list of names here, but anyway, it's not intentional. But thank you, everyone, for attending this event today. And I just want to welcome Dr. Nisha Porter, President and CEO of Bronx Community Foundation. And let's give her a round of
Giving
applause.
away the wrong job. asked to bring welcome and greetings, and so I need to get him back. Good morning. So it is such an honor and a privilege for me to be here for a number of reasons. First, I had the opportunity to teach in the education department here under Dr. Johnson, and so I really enjoyed to do that. Was a principal in the Bronx and sent many students here to BCC, but more importantly, to talk to folks who are thinking about the profession of teaching. First of all, I want to say thank you. We need you. And when I look out at this room, yes, give yourself a round. We have a lot of conversations in education about ensuring that young people, like us, have teachers that look like them. And when I look out at this room, I see a collection of faces that can be the future generation of teachers that stand in front of young people that look like them. And that really, really matters. I also want to say, teachers don't touch a life, they touch generations. And it means so much to be here today because of these ladies who you're going to hear from today. And as a teacher, as a principal, as a superintendent, every job that I've had, I've been touched by ladies on this panel, and who all started off as teachers. And we all started this journey of teaching, not knowing where it would take us, but thinking about young people that look like you, that look like me, and that look like all of us together. When I was a principal, I was told that I had to be mentored, and I was sent to Carmen Jimenez. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. She taught me, she trained me, she loved on me, and what she taught me, most importantly about being a principal, was that great principals create an environment where great teachers can thrive. And so as you think about this profession, I want you to not only think about what you want to do in the classroom, but the type of school and place in which you want to work where you can thrive. And where they've had that mentorship of a Carmen Jimenez. Jackie Boca Chica, because that's who she was for me. When I was a principal, she did my last quality review, and she kicked me out of the building. And not only did she say she didn't come in there knowing that she was coming to continue to teach me and move me to the next thing, but when she got there, she knew it. And I was scared to death, but I got kicked out of that room. And then Dr. Migdalia Torres was my mentor when I became a superintendent. And again, these amazing women who have not only been teachers and district level leaders and principals, but really understand in a deep way the importance and value of nurturing and developing young teachers. And so I'll tell you, your first year teaching will be scary. It should be. The first thing you do should always be scary. But it will be the most rewarding and fulfilling, hardest thing you ever did in your life. Because I promise, when you're like me, and they told me I can't say I'm old, but I'll say I'm hip-hop years old. So that puts it in perspective. When you walk across this campus and run into a student you taught that's a college student, when you are in Target and you run into a former student who just happened to me last week, tells you how they started a business in the neighborhood, when you get a message through social media from a student, or you watch their lives, and they reach back to you to tell you what little thing you did that you don't even remember, but they tell you about a little thing you did that you can't remember that touched their lives and changed their lives and impacted. That will fulfill you more than money ever can. And I know money matters, my friends, but I promise you, that sense of pouring into someone, pouring into a young person, and changing the trajectory of their life impacts generations. And so I thank you for being here today. You are going to be so, I can only say blessed by this panel, because the names I didn't mention who sit up here are also leaders who I've watched lean in and surround care, colleagues of mine. And so you are in a room with women and women with women. Women who have led at the highest levels of the system, but have remained grounded to what happens. What's most important every day in school is what happens between our babies and teachers in classrooms. And everything we do has to be around that. And so I thank you. I love this panel. I'm so excited for what you're gonna hear and learn from all of them. And I'm gonna leave you with my favorite quote from Maya Angelou, because I think it undergirds the importance of teaching. And Maya says that people will forget what you do, they will forget what you say, but they will never forget the way you make them feel. And I am so full because I got to hug all of these women this morning, and for what they've done in my life and what they will do in your life today and what you will do in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your words. I encourage Dr. Lester Sanders Rapalo, President of Rockland Community College, to take the stage, and I thank you for being with your colleagues, Puri Isabel, Dr. Sean, and Dr. Pichardo. And your students too.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. This is a really excellent event, not only for BCC, but also for Rockland Community College. Where my Rockland Community College students are? Yes. Also, thank you to Dr. Lenny Pichardo, obviously, Dr. Barbara Flores for organizing this wonderful panel forum, Dr. Tanya Johnson, the entire education department, and just to echo the wonderful remarks of different leaders that have walked to this stage today, this morning, please take advantage of this beautiful event, ask questions. You have a plethora of great knowledge in here today that are devoted the entire life to change lives. And I'm sure that if you have any questions, they will be more than happy to answer them with the love, the passion, the devotion that they had in their careers. So again, thank you and enjoy the event. Thank you, Dr. Flores. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rapalo. Thanks to all for coming and speaking at this marvelous event. Now, Carmen Jimenez will talk to all of us about a joyful experience for a childhood scenario.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm just going to ask Dr. Amin to come up, Raisha Amin, who is also
Yes, please, come here.
She's standing in the audience and didn't come forward. Come and give us a welcome.
Yes, well, let me just say good.
Frederick Douglass Academy top leader.
Let me just say really quickly, it's still morning, good morning. Carmen was like, come up. I was like, no, because I'm late. I'm so delighted to be here as someone who is a career educator. I won't say how many years, but I'm gonna just follow behind my colleague Misha and say hip-hop years. As I sat in this room and looked on the stage, it brought me so much joy and warmth, because as I look at each and every one of the women here, they have poured so much into me from my first moment at PS 107 in District 8, the Bronx. And while I've had the opportunity to work in so many communities across New York City, my time in the Bronx, being led, mentored, loved, developed, nurtured, cultivated, sometimes tough love. I can't just thank this panel, this group of women enough. And I'm gonna tell you why. There are moments on this journey as an educator, as my colleague Misha said, that can be hard, right? Where you may feel like, is what I'm doing right? Am I having impact, right? But I'm going to tell you, as you think about what's next, surround yourself with a village of love and care. I call it my personal board of directors, right? Because I can pick up the phone and call Carmen, as I just did 2 weeks ago, not about this,
Not about this.
because I needed a moment of wisdom for you, with you, as you embark on this wonderful, wonderful journey. And similar to how many of these women have stood by me and continue to stand by me, you don't know me, but I'm going to give you my telephone number. 347-326, that's the real one too, it really is, 2088. Text me, I offer this all the time. I am here, I want to be able to stand by you. Don't let the media tell you anything different. This is an honorable profession. I am proud to stand here. I was a new principal with Nisha. We were loved by Carmen, nurtured and mentored. I served as a superintendent, got to serve under Nisha when she was a chancellor. I still love getting up every day and doing whatever it is that I have to do across the city now in Harlem, for children, for adults. And that is hip hop years later. I am still smiling, and I think I still look good. And I still feel joyful when I wake up in the morning. Not always as fast. That was something that happened this month. Like, me hurts a little bit, right? But I still wake up every morning with joy. So I tell you, as you begin to enter, I don't know, I know some of you are new, some of you have been in this, walk every day with confidence. Okay? Know that you have people who have done everything you are about to do, right? Who will stand with you, who will support you. I am one of them. Count me a member of your village. I'm honored to be here. I'm excited, mostly because I get to see women who would be standing here, would not be standing here, and I get to see the future. So thank you, Carmen, for allowing me just to speak really quickly, and I'm going to take my seat over here now, because I want to hear from the parents.
Thank you.
So I want you to participate with me. I always ask people to give yourself permission to be here today. There are about 100 other things. I know it's close to the end of the semester. You're writing papers, you're doing this, graduation, all this kind of stuff. But just for today, I want you to give yourself permission to be here. It means nothing else is going. And I'm going to take you through a little exercise. So the first thing I want you to do is to relax, and I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath in, inhale, as I say in Spanish, exhale, and exhale. And now I want you to go back into your childhood. For some of you, that remembered last week, but for most of us, it was a long time ago. But go back to your childhood, and I want you to think of a joyful experience in your childhood. Something that brought you great joy. I want you to see it. I want you to experience that feeling again. That feeling of joy. Visualize it with details. And at the count of 3, I'd like for you to open your eyes. 1, 2, 3. Now, by a show of hands, I would like for you to share that experience and tell me if there was a teacher in that experience. Just by a show of hands, how many of you had a teacher in that experience? Okay? Raise it up high. I want to see how many people had a joyful experience in their childhood with a teacher. How many of you had a joyful experience with someone that was in a school? It could have been a guidance counselor. Raise your hand up high. Counselor, a paraprofessional, an assistant principal, or a principal. How many of you had a family member? Someone in your family, in your immediate family. Raise your hands. Okay. How many of you had people you meet, someone that wasn't related to you, but you had a joyful experience? Can you think about, just by a show of hands, the joyful experience of those of you who were in schools? Think about why it was joyful to you. In most cases, when we think about a joyful experience and there's a teacher or a principal or a vice principal or a school aide or a paraprofessional or a guidance counselor, it's usually because they either inspired us, they influenced us, or they somehow impacted our lives. And because of that, we had something that's called relationship with them. We built a relationship. We connected almost at a spiritual level with them. And maybe they saw in our souls, they could have seen our desires, our dreams, that many told us we couldn't accomplish, but they saw something in us that was very special. And today, we want to share with you, as most of us, all of us have been teachers, all of us have been principals, all of us have experienced some level of district leadership, and we all know that one of the primary things that we even look for in a teacher is that person's ability to be able to connect in relationship with children. So today we're going to share with you our stories, we're going to share with you our strategies, and we're going to share with you how do you make that happen for our children. All the children, you were the children of this community, perhaps, and you attended the school. The school down the block, 206, and 306 over on Davison are schools that I led as a principal. So I know this community. Many of you have, been educated in this community, and many of you aspire to reach your dream of becoming a teacher. And we want to make that, we want to encourage you. We want to inspire you to do that today. So give yourself permission to be here. Inside your folders, there's index cards. Any questions that you'd like to ask at the end, please place them on that index card and make sure that it arrives to Dr. Flores before the end of the session. All right? Oh, I think they're outside.
Thank you for this memorable experience. Secondly, each presenter will introduce themselves, and each has 10 minutes to present. Okay, 10 minutes. I will start with Sonia Menendez, Influence.
So good morning, everyone. It truly is a pleasure to be here this morning. Bienvenidos. Es un placer estar con ustedes esta mañana. So as I look out in the audience, and I think about myself as a child who was born and raised in the Bronx, and I still live in the Bronx. I've taught in the Bronx. I was a bilingual teacher when I began teaching in the Bronx. I think of the influence that we have as teachers. And sometimes that influence is overreaching. And we don't even realize that we're influencing, as I've heard someone say before, not just children, but generations to come by the work that we do. I, like many of the people many of my colleagues on the panel, began as a teacher. I was an assistant principal here at PS 46 in District 10. And then I became the principal of PS 310, also in District 10. I had the opportunity to become the superintendent of District 10 from where I retired, and I want to say way too long ago already. However, I continued to work as a consultant, and every time I go into a school, even though I'm tired in the morning, I get rejuvenated, because the children that are in front of me are our blessings. So this morning, I'm going to touch upon the influence that teachers have. And I want to share a story that as a superintendent, one of the duties that I had was to approve tenure for teachers. And in those days, it's already a while back, but in those days when I was superintendent, teachers had to provide a portfolio with data and artifacts from their work. And that included a reflection. And of all the binders that they would give me, which were yay big, the most important part for me was not all the data that they gave me, but the reflection that they gave me. because the reflection told me who they were as people and who they were in terms of looking and understanding where our children are and where they come from. So I'd like to start my presentation this morning by reading one of the reflections, and I saved quite a bit of them. And so I'd like to share this reflection that I received from one of the teachers. It was the first day of school, and I was standing at the front of the room with 28 pairs of eyes staring right at me. Their unspoken fear and the questions they had. What would it be like? I wonder if high school will be hard. I hope I don't fail. Were clearly evident on most of the 9th grade faces. Little did they know that as I stood there, I too was trying to conceal the same fear and questions from them. After years of working up to that moment, I was now the teacher, the authority, the decision maker, the role model. Almost daily, I think of all the responsibility and work associated with that title, teacher. And I can't help but sometimes wonder why I chose to be a teacher. Let's face it, a teacher in Brooklyn or in the Bronx or anywhere in New York City doesn't exactly always make a six-figure salary. So it would be safe to say that money was not a deciding factor in my decision to become a teacher. And yet, I usually meet with the same response, as if money should be the only basis and incentive in choosing a career. A teacher? Why teaching? Teachers don't make much money. I'm sure many of you probably hear the same thing at home. I know I did. I had brothers and sisters who were all in the financial area, and they would say to me, "You're gonna be a teacher? What, are you crazy?" But just like this teacher, I knew it was the right one. It is at that moment that I immediately flashed back to that time when the idea first crossed my mind. A time when I didn't fully understand the importance or concept of money, so it couldn't have been a reason. Not many people plan out their goals at age 4 or 5. But there I was, in kindergarten and first grade, looking up at my teacher and thinking, I want to be like her and do what she does. I want to have my own class one day. Perhaps it was the seemingly effortless control she had over us, the creativity she had in the classroom, or maybe it was the sense of happiness and satisfaction she seemed to exude every single day. Whatever it was then that I set my goal of becoming a teacher. And my response to the "what do you want to be when you grow up" question remained the same year after year as I do this work. And as I read that reflection of that teacher who was up for tenure, I could feel myself being that child in the first grade and the second grade and the third grade, and looking up to that teacher that I had and saying, that's what I want to do also. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about that overreaching influence of teachers. And if we think about that definition of influence, we know that if we look it up, if you Google it, or if you look up in the old-fashioned things dictionaries, it says it is the ability to have a positive or a negative impact on others. And so as a teacher, we either help support a child or we can help destroy a child. So our influence is overreaching. Influence, when you think about influence, it's one of the competencies of the social emotional intelligence. And I know I've had the opportunity to learn under Dr. Janet Patty from Hunter a lot about social and emotional intelligence, and have looked at the role of influence. And I've looked at that, knowing that when we're strong in the competency of influence, we inspire, we engage, we motivate, we support, and we build on others. So as we're new people thinking about going into teaching, we want to think about that definition of influence and that competency. However, not everyone is strong in influence. Sometimes we find people who struggle with that competency, who find it hard to communicate, who find it hard to develop a common vision, who don't always connect with their audience. We heard Carmen talk about relationship. And so when you're strong in influence, that means that you're strong in building relationships with others. But if you struggle with it, you need to rely sometimes on that position of authority to get others to comply. And I know that all of us here have had both teachers, the one that influences us and the one that just uses their position of authority to get kids to comply. And as a principal, I was always looking for that thing when I was interviewing teachers that would tell me which one is this teacher going to be. The one that can inspire, the one that can motivate, the one that can engage children, or the one that's gonna stand there and get children to comply because she's the teacher or he's the teacher. So, as teachers, we know that our influence is limitless. It goes way beyond the classroom. Sometimes we don't even realize the strong influence that we have. But we realize, I think, that when you've had a teacher who inspires you and motivates you, that they leave a lasting impression. And that as Carmen did that exercise today, many of us thought about a teacher who inspired us and who motivated us. Or it may have been our parents who were our first teachers, because sometimes we think that teaching is just within the classroom, but we know that our parents play that role of being our first teachers, our motivators, and those who influence us. And so think about how well we remember that teacher who believed in us, that teacher who brought out the best in us. But we also need to think about that teacher who did the total opposite. I see Barbara telling me a minute, and I have so much more that I wanted to share. However, I probably am going to start, I want you to think about that as teachers, we influence, and we are the ones that kids talk about every single day when they go home. I know that not only as a teacher, because the parents would come and tell me, the kids said, Mrs. Menendez said, and as a parent, here I was a principal, and my children would say, but that's not what the teacher said. That's not what the way the teacher said it. So your influence is far-reaching. So I would like to remind us that not only is it important for us to start to think about the vision that we have, or what kind of a teacher we want to be, but also to start to develop a belief system. What is it that we believe, and how are we going to impart that upon our students? In your folders, I asked Barbara to add a letter from Dr. Shelley Harway, who was the superintendent of District 2 and was the beginning founder, principal of the Manhattan New School. And in that letter, she talks about the vision of her school. And she talks about the things that the children are going to get out of being students in her school. So I would ask you to take a couple of minutes when you have time to read that letter and think about, what kind of a classroom do I want to have? What is my belief system and my vision in terms of how I want children to remember me? So thank you for the opportunity for speaking with you today.
Thank you so much. Now with us, Jacqueline John, Influence.
Good afternoon. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so glad to be here, honored to be here with you. My name is Jacqueline Harris Young, commonly known as Jackie or Jack, and I'm an old girl. I'm a fly old gal, so I'm older than quite a few people up here, but that's good. And I still love teaching. I am one of the students, one of the people who, my dad was in the Air Force, so I went to 16 different schools before I graduated high school. And in that, in a couple of different countries and several different states, so there was a lot of mobility that was going on, and I know we have that in our children. And in that time frame, I got a chance to meet a lot of people from a lot of different places, which helped to build some of who I am. And I also met a lot of great teachers, and a few that, okay? So I say that because, as my colleague Sonia said, teachers have a lot of influence both in the classroom and in our daily lives. And so just think back to that teacher who encouraged you, who saw something really special in you when no one else did. I had a student who was constantly getting in trouble, and I would tell them, instead of suspending him, I would tell the principal, send him to my room. This young man, going like 20 years later, I taught middle school, 20 years later, my husband came to pick me up after work. I was a principal at a school, and we're getting ready to go on vacation. And all of a sudden, some guy comes behind me and he just picks me up. My husband gets out of the car and he says, what is going on? And I look up and I said, Kwame? It was Kwame Satterfield, who became the regional director for UPS. And he says, I guess you're her husband, because I was planning on marrying her, but she was the best teacher I ever had because she always believed in me, and whenever I got in trouble, she would listen. She would listen to me. I always told Kwame that you can be whatever you want to be, but you have to have some kind of focus, have an aspiration, and here are all these different kinds of careers out there that you can go into. Pick one and try it and go for it. And he did. He was like an amazing young man, and he's still a regional director for UPS and doing some amazing work. So no matter how old we are, whether we're in kindergarten, whether we're in 2, 3 years old, or whether we're a fly old gal like me, you feel great when someone has confidence in you, when someone encourages you, when someone lets you know that you matter, that you're special, and they give you that encouragement to be your best self. When they give you that approval, it makes such a difference. And as a teacher, which most of us are with our teachers more than we're with our parents sometimes, it makes a huge difference. So that influence makes a tremendous difference. Conversely, if you have someone who is in front of those students and you're constantly getting on their case about what they're doing wrong, that's going to have an impact on their lives later on. It serves to tear down their self-confidence, and you don't want to be that person. With every child, you don't want to start from a deficit model. You start from where they are, and you show them all of the great qualities that they have to be a better person, to reach their goals and their aspirations. It is so important. As a teacher, you serve as a coach, as a mentor, as a parent, and as a counselor. So I'm going to go over a few of those. As a counselor in your classes, I'm sure you're taking psychology and understanding the emotional development of children along the way. You have to be very sensitive to the development in different levels, in different age groups. So if you decide you want to go into early elementary, middle, or high school, there are different levels of development there, and you'll learn that in some of the courses that you take. And you want to be cognizant of that because it helps you in terms of your relationship with the students. I eventually I was a principal of an all kindergarten school, 325 little 5-year-olds. And I came from middle school, teaching middle school, so that was like, whoo, that was almost traumatic for me. I had to go home and learn all about, if you give a mouse a cookie, because they weren't reading that in middle school, learn all the books that they had to read and everything, but I learned so much from those babies. They were amazing. They're so honest. They tell you exactly what they're thinking, and I just learned a lot from them. I learned about patience from them. I learned more about compassion from them. And so eventually I became a principal of a pre-K to 8 school. And here I am in the hallway, and a little kid is running in the hallway, and I'm like, Johnny, don't do that. You're not supposed to run in the hallway. My 8th grader's running. I know I don't see you running in my hallway. So I became a Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde because, you have that split personality working with them. But that's being aware of who you're working with. So you have a conversation with one age group in one way and a conversation with another, but you're letting them know what some of the boundaries and expectations are, and you're modeling that for them because they are watching you when you don't even know they're watching. So as they see you, and they want to be what you are. They want to be the way you are. They want to act the way you are. They want to be like you. You are influencing them, and you don't even realize it sometimes. As a counselor also, understanding that a child's perception is their reality, right? So as a teacher, you are a counselor. A child's perception is their reality. So if they perceive you to be someone who's supportive of them, someone who believes in them, they're going to really think that, and they're going to try to do their best. If they perceive you as someone who is constantly disappointed in them, not trusting in them, not believing in them, they're not going to believe in themselves. So it's really important. Your influence goes a long way. Conversely, if you constantly encourage them, even if they're doing something wrong, have the conversation, listen to their perspective of why they did what they did. and then go over some strategies for, improvement, or find out together how you can make something better. It makes a difference because they start to feel important. They feel that they're valued, that their voices matter, that their opinions matter, and it makes them want to work more because children in your classroom want to please the teacher. So if they feel that you're really into them, you're really listening to them, you're really understanding them, they're going to want to be their best to make you happy and then eventually make themselves happy. As a mentor, you provide an example for students in terms of how they should conduct themselves. And as I said, they're always looking at you. So even when you don't think they are, they are. I went into work one day and I had on 2 different shoes. I got up, and I was rushing. Had on two different shoes, and I didn't realize it. Not one single adult said a thing. So I go into this classroom of 5th graders, and I call them my high flyers. They were my children that were constantly doing things that we quite didn't want them to do. But, they were my babies. I go into that classroom, and one of the girls says, "Miss Harris, you got on 2 different shoes." So I looked down, and I said, "Honey, that's the style." The next day, they all came in with mixed match shoes on. So they really watch what you're doing. But with that group, my high flyers, and I actually got that from Carmen. She had her A group. I called them my high flyers because they were my kids that I said, "You're at the top level, and you have the ability to do all the things that you need to do, and I need you to model and demonstrate that for some of my other kids." So half that group was special needs kids, and half the group were just children that needed additional time and love and stuff like that. So they became my little ambassadors around the building. They'd let me know when somebody ripped down a bulletin board. They'd let me know when somebody didn't do their homework. They'd let me know what was happening out on the street. We were supposed to be doing this project together, but they went to a party. They would come in and let me know and then keep everybody else in check. And they became model students. So I remember one testing cycle that we went through, and back in those days, kids were put in levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4 in the test. And I would tell them, "You are not a level, you are a person." But this child comes running to me and he says, "Miss Harris, I got a level 3, I'm a level 3, I got a level 3 on the reading test." I said, "You got that score, but you're not a level. You are Johnny Mack. You got this score because you put in the work, you studied, you worked for it and everything." So by doing that, the other kids was like, "Oh, I can do that too." So they were encouraged by what you say. So what you say, words matter. What you say is so important because they're encouraged by that. As an authority figure, teacher in the classroom, you have boundaries and expectations, and you set those boundaries. You are not your student's friend, you are the teacher. You set boundaries and expectations, and you do it together. At the beginning of the year, you set out some class norms not rules, class norms that they want to follow, and it lets them know that their voice matters. They are having some impact in terms of how you're going to conduct the class and how they're going to operate in that classroom throughout the year. As a coach, you want to make sure that you continue to motivate and encourage all of your students, not some of your students, but all of your students, because every child in your classroom is important. Every child matters. And so you want to make sure that you give them those minor corrections when they need it and let them explain to you why they're doing what it is they're doing and when they're doing it. As a teacher also, in terms of the building that you're in, someone mentioned selecting a place that you like to work. You want to make sure that you're not complaining about the staff that's there and complaining about the work, the curriculum, and all that kind of stuff, because when you're complaining, the kids are like, "Well, I don't want to do this either. My teacher doesn't like it, I don't like it either." But when you're saying, "Okay, this is a new thing that we're working on, we're going to work on this together, we're going to be our best," they're going to strive to do the best. All right, so I know that I don't have much time, but I want to leave you with this. First of all, teaching is the only profession in which all other professions depend. That's one thing. The other one's teachers have an incredible influence and power over the outcome of their students' motivation to learn and their feelings of confidence regarding not only their academic abilities, but also their feelings of self-worth, and that transfers throughout their life. So thank you for having me, and I hope you got something out of this. One last thing, the flyer that's in your packet, it says influence is key. I found a misspelled word on there last night. I am so sorry. So I made additional copies, and Dr. Flores has it with the corrected version. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Jacqueline Bocachica Velázquez, Impact.
Impact. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Still a teacher, still a teacher. Want you to turn to your neighbor or whoever's next to you, or if you have to go across, or if there's three of you, that's fine. And just say the name of a teacher that had impact on your life. Just tell them the name. The word impact comes to mind when we think of our teachers because in some ways, they may have changed our life. Some of the names that came to mind may not have all been good memories. The word impact in the dictionary is defined as one object or person forcibly coming in contact with another object or person. And so if we think about that, it sounds kind of negative, especially if one thing is a car and the other's a person. Impact can be negative and it can be harmful. But today we're going to focus on the impact that a teacher may have on their students. And I'd like to say that students also have impact on us as educators. I taught algebra. I know, raise your hand if algebra was your favorite subject, don't shout too loud. Algebra for over 13 years in the Bronx in Spanish to students that had recently arrived from different countries in Central and South America. Shortly after that position, I became an assistant principal in that same building, working with some of my colleagues and supervising some of my former teachers because I was a teacher and an assistant principal in the school that I had been a middle school student here in the Bronx. When I left there, I became the principal of Middle School 391, not too far from here. So I don't know if any of you attended there, but I was the principal of that school for some time. And I went on to do other things in the Department of Education, but always a teacher, always looking to see how I can help someone grow in their learning, in their profession, in their skill set, and always a learner, studying, observing my surroundings, my environment, to see what I could gather and use for my benefit and my own growth. Because teaching is a constant, moving profession. But I'd like to share that if you're sitting in a seat here today, whether you're already past the decision point and have lived as an educator already, whether you're sitting here as a visitor or as someone who's thinking about this, you're sitting here with purpose. There are no mistakes. So I believe that we're all here and we've been designed for a purpose. And teaching is a calling. It really is a ministry and a gift that we have in our hearts. And some of us have done it since we were really, really young, even before thinking of a profession. We might have taught our friends how to jump rope or jump double dutch or roller skate or ride a bike. We might have taught our siblings how to read and how to operate the new technology in the house. We might have been the teachers for our parents in some ways of English or other languages if they came from a different country and needed to navigate policies and processes here as they moved into a new environment. And so this thing called teaching is powerful. I know we have it as an eye to the third power, but the influence of teaching is exponentially much higher than that. And I can think of teachers that impacted my life. And so as I thought about coming here and telling a story, I said, you know, before I tell a story of how maybe I have impacted others, I need to think of who impacted my life. So I'd like to talk to you about Yolanda Spinella and Beatrice Liebesman. You don't know them, but those names are in my heart. They're engraved in my brain, and when I think of them, I think of Miss Spinella teaching me how to read. And she sat with me, and she sat with me, and she sat with me until I understood and could answer all of the comprehension questions not just sounding out words. She recently celebrated her 90th birthday. She is my Facebook friend. She hits like on anything that I post. And the most impactful thing was that she remembered me after so many years, because I went to 3rd grade a really long time ago. I know it doesn't look that way. I ran into her, and this is how I ran into her. I'm sitting at a diner, having a cup of coffee after doing one of my visits to a school, and I'm sitting by myself, and I hear someone speaking behind me to another person at another booth. Being a little nosy that I am, I stopped sipping my coffee and I said, that voice sounds familiar, but it can't possibly be because it's taking me back to when I was a child. But I turned around and there she was, Miss Spinelli. Sure, she looked a little different. She had the same exact haircut. And I looked at her and I said, I don't even think I should dare to do this, but she must have had thousands of students in her lifetime. How is she going to remember me? So I went up and I said, excuse me, but were you, I didn't even finish my sentence when she said, Jackie Boca Chica, how have you been? And my tears welled up. And she said, and how's your brother Ferdinand and Mike? And I hate to ask, but your mom? I said, no, my mom passed away. She even remembered the detail of my mom being ill while I was in her class. And so that teacher impacted my life in many, many ways, but I had no idea that she had delved into the story of my life in such a way that it stuck with her. And now I knew for a fact that she wasn't just teaching me how to read. She was caring for me, she was loving me, she was taking me under her wing during probably one of the hardest times in my life. Today's a special day. My mom would have been 90 today. And so I know that the impact of Miss Spinella on my life has been deep, and it has been long-standing. She cared about me. It had nothing to do with scores on the test. Beatrice Liebesman, when I was in the 6th grade, and my mother did finally, unfortunately, pass away, she understood the challenges that my father had raising 4 kids and not being able to do the things that normally would happen in an otherwise healthy household. And I remember one day I couldn't pay attention and I just laid my head down and I held my ear and she said, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not, Miss Liebesman. And she said, I'll be right back. Some other teacher walked into the room. She grabbed her purse and her coat, asked me to go with her, and took me to her private doctor. Of course, these things can't happen nowadays the way they did back then. But she cared for me beyond the lesson she was teaching. She impacted my life, and she taught me a lesson that I carried in my educational career, which is the students in front of you are not just scores, they're not just numbers, they're not just a register or a list of names that maybe you can or cannot pronounce. They are students with families, with stories, with experiences, with history, with culture, with language, with challenge, with promise, with potential, with dreams. And because of that, I poured into my students in ways that many of my colleagues sometimes criticized. Others thought I was doing too much. I should back up. And in essence, what I was trying to do was impact their lives for their future. And the last person I'll mention is Lydia, a young lady who came into my classroom, bilingual math class, and said, Missy, yo quiero coger ese examen en inglés, no quiero cogerlo en español. I don't want to take the test in Spanish. I need to pass it in English. And in 1 year, by staying after school with me 20 to 30 minutes every day, we practiced enough so that Lydia was able to take the Regents exam in English. She is now a professor of biophysics at the University of Texas at Austin. And because of the teachers that surrounded her, that joined me in an effort, I didn't do it alone, but I did it because I had models that said, we'll do whatever it takes. Impact takes an attitude of whatever it takes, no matter what. Despite our best efforts, when the kids don't get it, we'll do something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline Bocachica. Now the turn is for Dr. Migdalia M. Torres. Impact.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. You have no idea. I get emotional, so you're going to have to bear with me, okay? As they mentioned, my name is Dr. Migdalia Maldonado Torres, and it's through God's grace that I'm here, my parents, and some very, very special teachers in my life. I would like to start with a quote. Education is the key to success in life, and teachers, listen to this, make a lasting impact in the lives of students, by Berzon, as we just heard Dr. Gonzalez speak about that. Impact, another way to look at impact is an outcome or an effect that is beneficial or advantageous. But as was said, it could also be negative. So you have to be on the lookout. A teacher's impact on a student's life extends beyond the classroom walls, shaping the character, aspirations, and future success. Teachers have the greatest, listen to this, impact on student achievement. We know the importance of teachers having good command of the content, curriculum, and possessing good teaching skills. We also know that they not only teach content, but a range of skills students will need to be successful adults. Teachers play an important role in the overall well-being of students, as has been mentioned. I love research, so I'm just going to share a little bit about research, okay? A growing body of research shows that the impact of developing students' non-cognitive skills. A study conducted by Dr. Jackson showed that teachers who help students improve non-cognitive skills such as self-regulation, and we know that that is so needed today, okay? Motivation and the ability to adapt to new situations had important impacts on those students' lives. Teachers who improve students' non-cognitive skills also improve their odds of graduating from high school. Important. Also important is the relationship between teachers and students, as it has been mentioned, and students with each other. It's difficult for students to learn if they feel that their teacher doesn't care, and I've seen that. Stanford professor Linda Darling Hammond states, and I quote, "The science says to us that in fact, the way the brain functions and grows, it needs safety, it needs warmth, and it actually even needs hugs." I love that. We actually learn in a state of positive emotion much more effectively than we learn in a state of negative emotion. That has huge implications for what we do in schools. I presently do executive coaching with a focus on emotional intelligence, and I've seen, it's incredible what people that have emotional intelligence, especially in the classrooms and education, the impact that they have. It's all about relationships, 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 as it has been mentioned. Having and teaching emotional intelligence is crucial. I would like to share with you what Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence has developed. Their ruler program is an approach to teaching emotionally smart skills to children. One of the ways to cultivate a positive emotional school and classroom climate is by students writing their own classroom. Because again, it's really important for students to get along with other students, not just with their teachers. By the way, a staff can also write their own staff charter. So you ask, what is a charter? The charter is a social contract that they put together. It's an agreement about how students want to feel in their classroom and then work together to agree upon behaviors that support those feelings. Once created, it provides an anchor for checking in regularly to see if everyone is adhering to the developed norms of behavior. And to create this charter, students are asked 3 questions, okay? First question, how do we want to feel as students in the classroom? They share their feeling words. Examples could be safe, respected, accepted. Then after that, they all decide what 8 feeling words are we going to focus on, do we agree on for this classroom, okay? Then the second charter question is, what can everyone do to experience these feelings each day, these desired behaviors? For example, it could be listen to each other, treat others the way you want to be treated. Those are some of the examples. And then lastly, how will we prevent and manage unwanted feelings and conflicts in this classroom? And they discuss that. And it could be, we're not going to raise our voices. When we speak, we're going to use I statements. Those are examples. The charter can help build a positive culture and climate. Hopefully students can learn from this and use these skills to make a better world, become good citizens. This reminds me of, I just finished coaching recently an assistant principal, and she was telling me how she had taught several years in the classroom, and then she said that what really she was passionate about was that she said that I still, and I was and I'm still, helping to shape good citizens. Think about that you have a hand in helping to shape good citizens. I was listening to a webinar on emotional intelligence on how this particular program was used in a school to teach kids about emotional intelligence. They were interviewing students, and they interviewed this student from high school, and they asked him, tell us about what you think and how this affected you in terms of the training that you've received on emotional intelligence. And I'll never forget what that young man said. He said, this training on emotional intelligence has kept me out of jail, okay? That's how this works. My personal experiences, in terms of teaching, when I was a literacy teacher in a school, the principal comes to speak to me and says to me, Migdalia, we have a 3rd grader that can't read. She can't read. We don't know what's going on, okay? I want you to work with her. So I would take this 3rd grader to my class, okay, and I worked with her one-on-one, okay, in terms of teaching her how to read. And I'll never forget that one day I'm outside the school and I'm walking and I bump into her mom. She gave me such a huge hug. I was like out of breath. Okay, that's how hard she hugged me. And she said, thank you, thank you, thank you, because my daughter can read. Can you imagine opening up a world, okay, to someone so that they can read and they can learn and they can get ahead in life, okay? I was a principal in East Harlem, and I had a rough morning. My secretary says to me, Ms. Maldonado, there's a police officer outside that wants to talk to you. And I said, oh, now what, okay? I said, let her in. So she comes in and she says, do you remember me? And I'm looking at her and I said, no. And she said, I'm Norcus. And of course I remember when she said that. I said, yes, I remember you, okay? She says, I became a police officer because of you. And I went like, what? And she says, I want to help other people just like you helped me. I had her in the 5th and 6th grade, okay, in a school in East Harlem. And she was having a lot of problems at home. A lot of problems. And so what I did was, during lunchtime, I would bring her into my classroom and we would have lunch together and we would chat. And it was a safe space for her to just talk, okay, and to share. recently I went to a memorial service for a colleague, okay? And while I was there, someone came up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" And I looked at her and I said, "Give me your name." And she says, "I'm Lisette, okay? And I became a teacher because of you." And I'm saying, "Really?" So I had her in the 5th and 6th grade, okay? And she said, "That's when I knew I wanted to become a teacher just like you." My daughter teaches Spanish in middle school, okay? As we know, middle school is not an easy grade, to say the least, all right? And my daughter recently shared with me that a parent came to see her, and my daughter teaches, like I said, in a middle school, 7th grade Spanish. And a parent came and shared and said, "I have to tell you, my daughter was in a dark place. She wasn't motivated, she didn't want to learn, okay? But after having taken your class, my daughter's class, which by the way, is 1 period a day, 5 days, right? A week, 1 period a day we're talking about. After taking your class, she took such an interest in learning again. You have a good relationship with her. You gave her positive feedback." My daughter said, "But she's a bright girl." She said she wasn't always like that. And then she says to my daughter, "You have no idea how much you have helped my daughter. As a teacher, you can make a difference." And I leave you with this quote. "Teachers can make such a profound impact on our lives and should be honored as heroes," by Rainn Wilson. In your folder, I made copies of classroom charters that you can look at, so you know what I'm talking about. And the kids were the ones that really put this together, okay? So when you get a chance, when you have time, you can look at them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vitalia. Now, Justin Villa, Inspiration.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Justine, and I am going to focus on inspiration today. And I just want to start by saying how inspired I am and honored to be on this amazing panel with all these wonderful women who have served as mentors to me, and I've learned so much from. I'm currently an assistant principal in District 9. But when I started in education, I was actually a substitute paraprofessional. And when I applied to the New York City Teaching Fellows, I got my assignment. And you don't get to pick where you want to teach, they tell you what you're gonna do. And I was assigned to teach in middle school, and I had shared that with my classroom teacher, and she scoffed, and she was like, "Oh, middle school is the abyss of education, good luck." And I was so excited, and now I'm terrified. I'm like, "Oh my God, did I make the right decision? I'm so scared to go in front of these middle schoolers." But 10 plus years later, middle schoolers have stolen my heart. I absolutely love middle school. It's my favorite age group. But they are very after school special, melodramatic kind of students. And what I learned after being in the classroom with middle schoolers is that you have to inspire them. You have to manage to capture their hearts and their minds if you're going to engage them at all. And one of my favorite things before I went into a classroom is middle schoolers have to know everything, right? What the agenda is, what it is that you're going to teach them, what they're going to do before they leave that classroom. And so I want to model that for you today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what inspiration is, what it looks like in a classroom. I'm going to give you 2 solid examples of what that is, and then I'm just going to share a story about what inspiration has looked like for me in my experience as an assistant principal. So inspiration for me can look like one of 2 things inside of the classroom, right? It can either be a key that provides access to something that a student couldn't access prior, or inspiration can be a light that illuminates something that has otherwise been dark for them. And I know that that's a really abstract definition. So what that looks like in practice, as a key, right? I remember Alessandra said, "Miss, I'm gonna be a lawyer when I grow up because my mother said I always like to argue." And I was like, okay, Alessandra, so what do you need to do to become a lawyer? Well, I don't know, I feel like I gotta argue with the judge so, I can keep people out of jail. Like, it's a pretty basic understanding. What if I told you that arguing isn't just, yelling between two people, but it's coming up with really, really, really good reasons to get what you want? So what if you came up with a really good argument that could change Principal Nehru's policy on detention? She's like, word, miss, how do I do that? Well, if you come to debate club after school, I will personally work with you on that, but you also have to join the tournament. That's that key, right? I'm providing access to something that student might actually want to do. She might actually want to be a lawyer when she gets older, but she needs to access those skills. She needs to know how to rein in an argument, how to do research, how to appeal to people's emotions, and how to appeal to people's intellect. And so that's one way inspiration serves. The other way that inspiration can serve as a light, right? Illuminating those dark areas. One of my favorite classrooms to observe is a math classroom. And there's something called the 5 mathematical practices. And if I'm to summarize that really briefly, what a teacher does with the 5 mathematical practices is they provide students with a math story, or what we would call a word problem. And if they're a good teacher, it'll be a relevant math story, right? You're not gonna tell students to find the area of the garden in their backyard, because my students in District 9 do not have gardens in their backyards. It might be something more relevant that has to do with the corner store or the Yankee Stadium, something that they can visualize, something that's real to them. And that story might sound something like, the bodega puts 2 slices of bacon on their bacon, egg, and cheeses every single morning. And 15 slices of bacon come in a package. They have 3 packages. How many bacon, egg, and cheeses can they make? And they'll just set a timer for 10 minutes, and the students just have to come up with their own strategy and figure out how they're going to solve that problem. Now, you as the teacher, if you're a good teacher, you will never give away that answer. You will simply walk around and listen as they help each other come up with strategies to solve that problem. And at the end of these 5 practices, the teacher will select 2 groups that use 2 different strategies to answer that question. Now, one group should get that answer incorrect, but have a really unique, great strategy. And they'll pick another group that got the answer correct, that also used a different strategy. Now, the group that got the answer incorrect will go up, and and everybody else will say, I got 14 sandwiches, and they'll say, well, we got 17. She'll let the students tell them what they did wrong in their strategy. That inspiration, that light, it lights up something in their brain to start to critically problem solve. And that's what you want students to do, to have that life experience, because it's not always going to be a math story or word problem. It's how do I critically think about other things in life, and how do I problem solve and use others around and tap into their knowledge base to be able to solve my problem. And the story that I want to share with you is one of my favorite stories. I'm sitting in a classroom, a 5th grade classroom. It's Mr. Yu Tate's classroom, and he's teaching on the plastic vortex. And he has a talk-in prompt. It's how he starts all of his lessons. And he tells the students, your mom leaves you $5 and says, get breakfast. I had to rush to work early this morning. Turn and talk. What do you get at the store? So everybody turns and they're like, I'm gonna get a bacon, egg, and cheese. I'm gonna get a ham and cheese. I'm gonna eat half for breakfast and half for lunch. I'm gonna get a bag of Takis. And then I'm gonna get an Arizona iced tea. Or I'm gonna get an Arizona fruit punch. And then the timer goes off, beep, beep, and he goes, all right, show of hands. How many of you got a drink with your meal for breakfast? Everybody raises their hands. Okay, hands down. And he goes, show of hands. How many of those drinks came in a plastic bottle? And they all raise their hands. And then he goes, that's what I thought. And he goes behind his desk and he takes this plastic garbage bag and holds it up. And there are 28 empty bottles in there. And he goes, now this is just one meal from one class in one school on one day. What if we multiply that by 5 for every single class in the 5th grade? And then what if we multiply that by 30 for a month? What would that look like? And the lesson was beautiful. The students came up with this, amazing idea of let's use flatware in the cafeteria and not use single-use plastic. And as I go to leave the classroom and I go to affirm them, and I'm like, guys, you are so smart. You're gonna change the world. And I have my laptop and my keys and my walkie, and then I have my iced coffee in my single-use plastic cup. And one of the students is like, but miss, you should know better. You shouldn't be using single-use plastic cups. And they're right, so I have my water bottle now, although, you know, I'm a little guilty, but before I end, and I know I'm running out of time, an inspiring classroom is always a two-way loop. You should be trying to inspire your students, but your students will always inspire you to be better. Because when you inspire your students and you have an inspiring classroom, you will impact the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now with us, Dr. Nancy Rosario Rodriguez, Inspiration.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good, good. Well, I just want to share a little bit about myself. I'm Dr. Nancy Rosario Rodriguez, and proud to be here because I am in the borough where I was born and raised, and where I raised my children, and where I still reside. I feel it's one of the greatest boroughs. And I had the pleasure of being a product of a wonderful family, and when I think about who my greatest teacher was, I have to go back to my own family. My mother was my greatest teacher. And we know that the first teacher of every child are their parents, correct? And so my mom, who had an 8th grade education in Puerto Rico, was one of the greatest, most inspiring teachers in my life. And one of the greatest gifts she gave me was the daily conversations that knowledge is power and education is very important. And it is the key out of poverty. I was a product and born and raised in NYCHA, Edenwald Projects in the Bronx, a place that I loved and is still very dear to my heart. I attended public schools in District 11, and I remember going to school from kindergarten on and loving every single day of it. We really had community. There were teachers that inspired me, impacted me, influenced me every single day. And one of the most powerful messages I remember receiving as a young girl was, you can do it. Can I hear everyone here say, I can do it? I can do it. Can I hear you say, I'm destined for greatness? I'm destined for greatness. You are all destined for greatness. There is a wonderful path awaiting you, but it takes some work. My topic today is the power of inspiring students to move, and these are all action words, right? To move into their destiny of greatness. When I thought about the word inspiration, I had to go way back to my childhood. And I said, well, what does this word mean to me? I want to make a sound, and I want you, before I make that sound, to think about breathing. Can you all take a quick second and just breathe and think about what's happening? Inhale and exhale. That is one of the most powerful processes in life. Why? Because when you breathe, it is evident that you are alive, that there is life in you. Well, you are all preparing to go into careers in the future, and you have the opportunity on a daily basis to breathe life into children, adults, and people all around the world. The word inspire goes way back to the Latin root where it's inspire, inspirar in Spanish, right? There is a process when we hear the prefix of in, right? Something inside of you that you are now able to give to someone else as a gift, and it becomes part of their life. Think about that, how powerful that is, right? So if I'm going to give you the definition, I'm going to share with you the meaning of inspiration. To inspire students is to influence them, and you've heard the panelists discuss the power of influence. To empower them, to fill someone with confidence. how many times do we have students that come to school and don't feel that they're able to do the work that's presented to them? Well, we have the opportunity to inspire them with confidence and to develop and help generate and cultivate a true desire for learning, to expand their scope of knowledge. That is what a teacher does. We expand our students' scope of knowledge. It elevates enthusiasm. There's something internally that begins to happen when you're inspired. You want to do something. You want to make certain decisions. It promotes zeal. It infuses a growth mindset, which we all need. We are lifelong learners. You see us on this panel, we're 60 plus, some 70 plus, right? We are still learning. We are still learning, right? We may not look that way. We may not look that way, except Justine. And I have to tell you, we have not had any facelifts. or any injections, okay? But we're still operating with that sense of zeal and passion and the desire to want to learn more and more, right? So it's a process that continues. It's a powerful construct of what you're ready to embark on, teaching and learning. When you inspire others, when you inspire your students, there is something very special that happens. Listen to me closely. You impart gifts of wisdom, of knowledge, of your experiences and your stories that stay with them for the rest of their lives. You've heard everyone here mention stories, right? They are with us for the rest of our lives. The stories that you will create will be with you and many generations for the rest of your life. When I was thinking about how do we create a toolkit, right, that we can share with our students and the body of those that will be present today, I said, well, let's give them some tangible tools that they'll be able to take back with them so that when they're ready to go into that classroom, they have something to use and draw from. So I'm going to share about 5 key traits of an inspirational educator. And when I share this, I'm thinking of all of you as becoming an inspirational educator. The love and passion for the mission. This is a mission field. It doesn't end when June 30th comes and children graduate and get promoted to the next level. This is a lifelong mission field. Developing culture and community, right? A culture for community. We've heard the importance of relationships and the importance of validation, of making students feel like they're the smartest people on earth, right? Letting them know that they have the potential to reach their dreams, to acquire whatever it is that is placed in front of them with the appropriate supports. We heard the big word that resonated through this entire panel is called love. First of all, you need to love yourself. You then need to love the work that you're ready to embark on. Love your constituents. Love your students. Love the community that you are going to work in. And the love that you have will demonstrate all of the wonderful things that you heard here today. Establishing trust, that is a big word. You have to trust and you have to be trusted. You are given a mission and you need to be trusted to be able to fulfill the mission. To put in the hard work, to have the sleepless nights, to wrestle with your thoughts when you get home, right? To make those changes, right? Those adjustments in the way that you present and execute learning for children and for students of all ages, right? Developing those strong relationships. I remember I always wanted to be my students' best friend. I wanted them to know that they could come to talk to me about anything. I may not have all the answers, but I would definitely look for the right solutions. My mother always said to me, do not focus on the problem, focus on the solution. Put your energy on focusing on the solution. Developing mentorship and internship opportunities, finding different opportunities for your students to learn from others in other careers, inviting speakers from the community to come into your classroom and to share their journeys. 5 inspirational classroom activities. Monthly celebrations. I loved monthly celebrations where I could showcase the brilliance of my students, inviting other classes to learn from your class, and also inviting family members. Creating a destiny wall, that was one of my favorites. A wall where children can write about what they want to be, who they want to become, right? I remember being asked that question at 6 years old. At 6 years old, I knew I wanted to become a teacher. And I had the greatest role models before me. Visiting universities like this one. Have kids, they don't have to wait till they're in high school. Have them visit universities early on. Take a nice tour. They will never forget the experience. And creating podcasts and talking about creating short films. This is a generation that's into technology. I just learned from my son that it's called the Gen Z population, right? I left off on the millennials, but now we're dealing with the Gen Z population, a population that's really wired technologically. So as educators, we need to be able to align the way that we teach with the way that children are learning. I'm going to end off real quick with a little story about a student that I had when I was assistant principal a couple of blocks down the road, and Jacqueline Harris Young was the principal there, who is responsible along with Carmen and everybody on this panel for my leadership journey. And there was a little girl named Julissa Diaz who was at risk for graduation, and she was able to come under the teaching of 2 very powerful teachers who believed in her and exposed her through a unit of the United States Constitution and how that was all developed. And today, as a result of her experience, Julissa is General Counsel of Lawyers in Florida. She is also the past president of the Hispanic Legal Bar Association, who I am so proud of because she was a little girl that came out of this community, was empowered, impacted, and inspired by 2 great teachers, and today she is back in New York City, created a scholarship at St. Jean-Baptiste School where she got her scholarship and is now mentoring students from the Bronx who are interested in the legal career. So I want to say to you as I close, everyone here is destined for greatness. Follow your path. Be determined. Be resilient. Inspire. Work hard. Don't let anyone stop your dream. Make your dreams come true. May God bless you. I pray one day I meet you and you tell me your story so that I can tell your story as I get older and closer to my 70s and 80s.
Our last panelist, Carmen Jimenez, Inspiration.
So, when I was in the 7th grade, my mother had put me in Catholic school to see if somebody could at least control me. And Sister Mary Josephine said to me that I would never, ever reach my goal or accomplish anything. I was just too sassy and too much of a know-it-all, and that I was Puerto Rican. or maybe she said I was Puerto Rican, too sassy, and too smart for my own good. I don't remember the sequence, but I remember that there definitely was a kind of racial tone to her voice with me. But what Sister Mary Josephine didn't know was that I had attended PS 116 in Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklyn girl. And that at my school, when I entered first grade, arriving here from Puerto Rico, I was considered a star. My superpower was being able to speak Spanish. And my teachers always thought that I was smart, and that being sassy was good, and that I was loved, and that I would accomplish all my dreams. In 5th and 6th grade, I had Mrs. Herman. Mrs. Herman was the inspiration in my life. Mrs. Herman told me every day, this poor little Puerto Rican girl who didn't realize what Mrs. Herman had done in her life until I became a teacher. Mrs. Herman told me every day that my circumstances could never define who I could become. She said, your circumstances changed. And Mrs. Herman, that I realize now as an adult, Mrs. Herman made it possible for me to dream, to be able to dream that I could become somebody, that I was worthy, that I was enough, that I had talent. And I remember that they would ask me in the school to say poetry in Spanish because they thought this second language that I had was so beautiful, which is very different from what many kids experience in our schools today. Mrs. Herman made sure that by the time I left and graduated 6th grade, that I was sassier than ever before, smarter than ever before, and able to accomplish my dreams. I always believe that to inspire means that someone or some people leave an indelible mark on your soul. And that's what my teachers did to me. And so when I became a teacher, that's what I tried to do with students. And I tried, when I became a principal, to have my teachers inspire their students. Every year I met with my teachers and asked them 5 questions that they needed to submit to me for the year. At the end of the year, I would put out those answers and we would go over how many they were able to have accomplished. The first one had to do with what was their understanding of the vision of the school. Not what was the vision, but what was their understanding and what was their role in accomplishing that mission. The second one had to do with what are your academic goals for your kids that you're going to have. You needed to think about what did you want them to accomplish academically. The third one had to do with, so what, as a professional, what kind of support do you think you need in order to succeed at accomplishing the goals? So what professional goals do you have for yourself? And the 5th one was, what is your dream for the students? What is your dream? And many of them would look at me very perplexed because no one had ever asked them what was the dreams they had for their kids. They would always ask them what were the goals, but not what was the dream. See, we have to be able to have a dream for our kids. We need to be able to inspire them to achieve those dreams. Because the world out there tells them every single day, just like they've told you, you're not enough, you're not worthy, you're never gonna make it, you're not gonna accomplish your goals. And we have to be the keepers of those dreams for them. So I would encourage them to inspire their students in that way. I want to share with you how I believe, looking at you as prospective teachers, how you can begin to inspire your students. First of all, I always try to frame myself every single day because it's very difficult in urban settings to frame ourselves to be prepared for the day. We bring so much baggage with us to a school, our own histories, our own, whatever we're going through in that particular moment. So one of the best ways to be able to do that is to really be able to start examining before you enter that building, how you're going to enter that building. What is it that you're going to choose to frame your day? And as my friend Jackie Gonzalez says, you have to choose joy. Joy is not something that comes to mind very easily. You have to be very deliberate about today I choose joy. And I'm going to give you a reason for doing that. When you set what your day is going to be like, you walk into that day. You don't bring the baggage with you. One of the things that I was known for was being able to, before I got out of my car, I would just set my intention for the day. And no matter what came my way, I would always ask that somehow I would be able to have wisdom to be able to deal with it, whatever may come. And that I wanted to see everyone, I wanted to see their souls, not what was in front of me, not judge with anything that was in front of me. So I ask you, as you go into these schools, I know it's very scary. It is very scary to go into schools that have no spirit. They're beaten up. They're underfunded. They're understaffed. There is no one walking in that sometimes says hello to you. You can go the whole day in a building and be invisible. So one of the things is being able to set yourself up by setting what your intention, and choose joy. Joy is something deliberate. It's a feeling, it's more than a feeling, it's a state of mind. Choose joy to process your day. At the end of the day, pick up all your baggage that you left at the door and take it home with you. It's like what we do with our school bag. You ever go those school bags? You take it in your car, you drive it to work, to your school, you take it back home again, and that's what you do. We do the same thing. We used to do the same thing, take those big bags, thinking we're going to do some work at home after we had killed ourselves at school, and we'd be able to do that. So, the second thing is, and this is important, be intentional. We walk around this world without being intentional. And the reason for being intentional is that when you are intentional, you pay attention to the details. You see things that you didn't see before when you are intentional. Life doesn't happen to you. Teaching just doesn't happen because you show up. You have to be intentional. And when you are intentional, you pay attention. And when you pay attention, you are able to see through the misbehavior, the sassiness, the answering back, the low morale, the kid with the hoodie sleeping in the back of the room. You're able to see through that and really see what is going on with the kids, what is really happening. You're able to then touch them in a way, spiritually, that perhaps no other teachers can. I am amazed in my junior high schools that I would have a group of kids that with one teacher, they were these scholars and writers and gifted and just participating. And in the next room, in the next period, it was the total opposite. The same kids. And I started to think about what was it about this teacher that made such a difference. And it was being intentional. Reaching out, seeing beyond what was there apparently. Second of all, I think that you need to believe that everyone is an A. You start with that premise. Ben Zander wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. In chapter 3, he talks about how he begins every single course by announcing to the students that they all have an A. You all have an A. In the next 2 weeks, they were to submit to him a paper describing the work they did to get that A. Guess what happened by the end of the semester? They all got A's. Because he was intentional and they didn't have to earn an A. They were already an A. The moment you walk through that door at Bronx Community, you are already an A, as Nancy said. You are already worthy. You're already enough. You were chosen for this moment. You were chosen to make a difference in other people's lives. So when you start with the premise that people already are an A, you begin to change the way you look at them. And as the Dalai Lama said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So we substitute that word for, when you change the way you look at kids, the kids you look at change. You notice them. You always make sure, Dupree says this, that you are able to connect your voice with your touch to kids and to adults. That is what makes the difference. When you're able to connect what you say to who they are, you touch their spirit. The last thing I want to tell you is a story from 206B, which is the middle school down the block, which I was principal of. One of the most powerful things that you could share in your life is your story. Your story is compelling. Many people don't tell their story. Your story is the most compelling example of being able to be more than a conqueror. You students here at Bronx Community, my heart is with you when you become teachers, because you have the story to tell your students about how they can achieve their dreams. We all come from backgrounds of the children that live in these communities. They look to us as their role model. We role model for them what they can achieve. So we must never, ever be defeated in that process. Okay? When I was the principal of 206B, the pastor of Love Gospel Assembly was Dr. Gerald Kaufman. It was 3 or 4 blocks on the concourse. And his children attended my school. And he spoke at one of the graduations, and he said something that has stayed with me my entire life. We are teachers because we must give our kids a dignity. We must give them dignity. We must give them destiny so that they can create dynasties. And that's what the charge of a teacher who inspires does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carmen. All this perspective gives us insight into what IQ stands for and how it is reflected in our classroom, a community, and an educational environment. Okay, now, you're ready, students? Yes? Find your index cards inside the folders, and please write your questions. You are ready? Any question for the panelists? You have 2 microphones. Questions?
Good afternoon. Thank you to the panelists for your time. This is for anyone to answer if it resonates with you. How did you persevere through your education and your careers during life challenges? And I gave examples such as a loss of income, death of someone close to you, or divorce or a breakup.
I think all of us could probably answer that, but I'll just take it and say that
the most important thing as you engage in not just this profession, any profession in life, is to surround yourself with people that truly, sincerely care about you. If you ask me on any given day what has gotten me through some of the most difficult times in my life, I always ask people, are you sure you want to hear it? Because it's kind of off path, but a crazy sense of humor and a great faith in God. That has been my strength. I've also met amazing people that have never failed me, that have never failed to tell me that this thing that we're going through it. And I'll share this really quickly. What reminded me of this was my granddaughter, Talia, who happens to be Justine's daughter, because that's my daughter-in-law. She was reading a story. It says we're going through a bear hunt. We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. And when they get to a very scary place, the character says, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We can't go around it. You gotta go through it. So you go through that difficulty. You go through that controversy. You keep your professionalism to a high level. You don't lower your expectations for yourself or others that you lead or teach. But you keep taking care of yourself. You smile when you can. You're grateful for every day because it's a gift, and you stay strong in your faith. You will get through it.
I'm going to give you an idea of something to do. Today is an opportunity for you. If you remember, Dr. Amin, Raisha Amin said, she gave you her phone number. Hello? Okay? Call her. This is the idea I want to give you. Starting today, start to think about creating your board of directors. A board of directors is a group of people that you have vetted and met. They are your connections. It could be someone who is a mentor to you. Maybe it's a teacher. It's a mentor, so that you could kind of call that person to ask them for advice about how to become a teacher, how to enter the school system. Okay, today you met us. You could ask us questions about how do you get into the Department of Education. We will help you. We might not know the new answers that they have downtown, but we'll get them for you because we know people. Okay? Could be another person, could be a coach, someone that coaches you. Okay? Which is different from a mentor. A mentor teaches you how to do something. A coach coaches you to be the best that you could be. It could be a person that's just a connection that knows someone. It could be someone who gives you advice. It could be someone that gives you feedback. It could be someone that you don't really like to meet with them because every time they have an evaluation about you, but you walk away with some information for improving yourself. Whatever it is, it's called a board of directors. And these are informal people that you keep in contact with, that you let them know your progress. We love knowing your progress. We know if we could help in any way, give you an advice, connect you. I have some people in the audience that today I said, come today, because I'm going to introduce you to some people. Just sometimes getting an introduction to people changes a narrative. So think about how do you create, this summer, spend the summer thinking, what if I created a board of directors, who would be on that board? And by the way, don't be shy about reaching out to people that you admire. You know, you may admire someone that you see on TV, that you want to be a broadcaster, or you know, you want to bring communications, you want to study communications or whatever. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. People are willing to help you. People are willing to advise you, okay? Someone else spoke earlier about that, you know, the teaching profession is not one that's, you know, you make a lot of money. Let me tell you something, people. That's a myth. That is a myth, okay? There are people that at this moment, I can tell you, in their tax-deferred annuity, when they become become a teacher, they start contributing to their tax-deferred annuity. You'll be about 22 years old. You put money in that tax-deferred annuity, you'll end up with $2 or $3 million in your tax-deferred annuity. Yes, we don't start out with salaries of $200,000 like the people at Wall Street and other professions do. But you know what? Over time, you meet those expectations. Right now, at the Department of Education, a person with a doctorate that is teaching 8 years makes $180,000. So please don't say, when people talk about teaching, they say, well, you don't make a lot of money. Yes, you do. You make enough money to make a great living. Okay, so I always am so angry that people say that teaching doesn't pay off. No, it doesn't pay off in the first few years because you probably have student loans. But you know what? One of the programs you should get into is the school deferred loans. So that as you teach our children in our communities, you get deferred, you get a percentage taken off. Your purpose in life is to become teachers that serve our children, okay? And the career of teaching is the most wonderful career you could ever have. This is the one thing that I could never teach you. I can teach you how to teach. I only need a week to do that. But I can teach you to love kids. You have to start with the premise that you really, really, really love kids and that you really want to see them be their best. They're all, let me tell you something that the Department of Education doesn't tell you and our society doesn't tell you. Every single child that is born gifted. It's only when they come to school that they're told they're not. And that's what you have to remember. Teaching is a great profession and you make a great living.
And I can also answer your question. You go through it, absolutely. You find your village or your board of directors, absolutely. But you also take care of yourself. I have a sticker on my water bottle from my brother-in-law. It says mental health matters. And I always think about the example of the airplane, right? If you don't put on your mask first, you can't help the people around you. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help your students. And so, you love yourself. You think about, taking a mental health day or self-care because it's so important because you need to fill your cup before you fill others' cups.
Thank you.
Just one more tool in terms of helping yourself self-care, okay, is journal writing, right? I was coaching a principal that had so much stress, and I said to her, you need to journal, okay? Journal about gratitude and journal about your tough times. And she says, Migdalia, I have all this that I have to do, and you're adding one more to it? Okay, come on. I said, try it. She did. When I saw her again, I said, how was the journal writing? She says, oh my gosh. She said to me, all the stress and all the problems that I had here that I was carrying around with me, I wrote them down and it was such a relief. Again, research shows that journal writing is great for mental health. So get yourself a journal.
Thank you. Next question.
I have two questions, actually. Since we're on the subject on talking about pay, what is the entry level pay now for a teacher?
Who do you have to? Samantha, you may know. Okay,
It's about 65,000.
I'm so sorry.
You can have a master's,
I'm
it'll
so
go up 9,000, and another 30 credits, it'll go up another 9,000.
Yeah, because I know your pay goes up with your experience, so the more years, the more money.
And your education.
Education.
Yeah. So, and my second question is, so how do you choose what subject you want to teach? Because I want to be a teacher, and I'm bilingual, so I don't know if I want to go the bilingual route, but I also love reading, writing, and English, so I don't know if I want to be like an English teacher. How do
my former principal when I was a middle school student. And he said, so you have a teaching license? I said, yes. He said, what would you want to teach if I gave you the choice? And this is what matters. You need to say what you want and be confident that somebody's going to listen. Because I said to him, I would love to teach algebra, and I would love to teach it in the classroom where I learned it with Ms. Campanella. And he said, room 408 is available. And I gave you a mentor, and I started teaching algebra. So it was a matter back then, you didn't have to have all of the credits up front to teach that subject. But I picked what I already had a passion for. So when I hear you talk about your bilingualism being a strength, and your love for reading, writing, and English, it sounds to me like you would be amazing at teaching students that need English as a second language from someone who has the passion for what they need to learn and acquire, but also that can respect and value the strength they already have, which is another language. So I would start writing down, maybe in that journal, what I really feel passionate about. What attracts me? What do I constantly look for when I'm reading articles on education? Because that seems to be defining my path. You already know, it's just that you're not there yet, and so you just need to wait for that intersection where you get, oh, this is it. And so hopefully you'll meet somebody who'll say that's it, but I'm telling you right now, that's it.
Thank you.
No, just, if you have, try to get different opportunities to visit different schools and different classrooms, because that would help you a lot. That helped me. I went, even as a teenager, I went with my friend to visit a school, and I'm going around elementary school, and just being there, I said, this is for me. I want to be a teacher. So visiting schools and classrooms is important.
And I was gonna add that knowing which age level you like to work with, I love middle school. I still love middle school. Yeah. I recognize that elementary school, there are a lot of kids in the class, and all those babies, love the babies, one-on-one, 1 to 5, but having 25 and 30 of them was a bit much for me. But the middle school, with all the drama and all their excitement, and one day they're babies and the next day they're adults, I love that age group. So knowing which age group you want. And I also knew that I love math. I taught math in middle school and science and computers. So making it exciting. Follow your passion and think about what excites you, because when you bring that to the classroom, that's going to excite your students.
Other question?
First, I want to thank Dr. Barbara Flores Caballero for bringing a wonderful group of educators here. Because I'm a retired teacher, 30 years. All right. And financially, I'm doing very well. I also want to say that I heard so many things that just I share with all of you. I'm also an attorney at law, and I taught middle school students to be lawyers in the Thurgood Marshall program. I've done all sorts of careers throughout my life. But I would say the most rewarding, absolutely, is teaching. What is it for you?
I retired in 2009 after 36 years with the Department of Education, okay? And I now have a mentoring program for girls, which started in 2010. Mentoring program for girls, because I love working with young people. I just love doing that. And I recognized that when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I always wanted to be the teacher with my little friends, right? And so I recognized that was the profession that I wanted to go into. But I think what does it for me is when that light bulb goes off, when you're working on something and the light bulb goes off, you're like, oh, I get it. Oh, oh, I understand it. Or when they come running in, I want to try this, I want to do that, let's try this over here. And it seems like it's something crazy to a lot of other people, but for them, it's something real and exciting, and I'm like, well, let's go with it. So we've done some crazy things, and one thing that we're doing, and I want to say to you, yes, it is a lucrative profession. When you get into teaching, start putting that money away, as Carmen said, right away towards your TDA, because yeah, you will get the millions. I retired in 2009, and I have no complaints. God is good. So, but one of the projects that they want to work on, lint. You all know what lint is, right? You dry your clothes, and you've got this wad of stuff, right? So my girls are now collecting lint to make dolls, comfort dolls, to kids who are migrants. Go figure. They read somewhere that a lady did this and started collecting lint and making these dolls and became a millionaire doing it. They're not trying to become millionaires, they're just trying to help other people. So when they first came up with the idea, some of the other adults said, that's crazy, you can't do stuff like that, it's gonna take too long. And I said, that's something you wanna do, let's make it happen. So they come up with the ideas, and I love the ideas they come up with. I love their ingenuity, I love their inspiration, I love their creativity. Go with it.
I just want to say that many of us up here are retired, but we still work. So we've changed that, and we're no longer retired. We are rewired for such a time as this.
Yes.
And so we are all doing other things with our time and our passion. I retired in 2016 and went right into teaching at Fordham University for 5 years, retired from there, and now I do some leadership development coaching virtually. But I also just recently started Project Joy, which is a fund to help under-resourced schools in Puerto Rico. And that is a passion that myself and my colleagues here at this panel, as well as my family and friends and church family, are invested in helping others. So we continue to do this because it truly is our passion. That's the only reason that we're here, is because we want to make sure that the next generation of teachers does this. Yes, you have to think, but do the work from your heart.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, now, Dr. Johnson, please come to present certificates to our panelists. Let's start with Sonia Menendez.
Oh.
The next certificate is for Jacqueline Young.
Dr. Jacqueline Bocachica Velázquez.
Dr. Torres.
Done.
I would like to thank all of my colleagues from the Education Department, Dr. Jen Johnson, our chair, Dr. Leonard Barnabas Crosby, Stephanie Alvarado, college assistant and tutor, Renee, Mr. Ba, all the students who made this possible, Kimberly Lora, my IUC representative for the Futures Teachers Club, Melissa Peña, Vice President of Futures Teachers Club, Dominic, the DJ, in a few minutes, need to move over there with him. And a special thank you to a Professor Jeffrey Wisowski and his crew for that production. Dr. Sarah Brady, Chair of Communications, Arts, and Science, everyone in administration at BCC, Dr. Luis Montenegro, Provost and VP Academic Affairs, Richard Ginsberg, Assistant VP Communications and Marketing, Therese Lemel, Scott Joshua Perez, Director of Admissions and Recruitment, Manny Lopez, Interim VP for Student Affairs, Mari Velez, Office Assistant of Student Life, Jose Burgos, Tiffany Dubon, Associate Director, Student Life, Jeanette Davila, Office Assistant, College Discovery Program, Dr. Melissa Goss, Barbara Thompson, guests, RCC students and administration, parents of Manhattan Bridge High School. Jamilet Rentana is already making Colombia cafecito. The executive officers and members of the Futures Teachers Club, Latino Association faculty and staff, and of course, my daughter, Victoria. Thank you, my love. I now invite you all for refreshments in the Rotunda. It's in the Gold Memorial Library floor over there. Please find a student to guide you to the cafeteria. Thank you so much, but before I leave, I need to this. I am so fortunate to have such an amazing mentor. Thank you, Carmen Jimenez, for taking the time to be a part of the panel and bringing together these inspiring women to share their expertise and knowledge. It was truly impressive, and I believe we all learned a lot from each of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.